Hey everyone, this is Adam. Welcome to another Alpha Strike We Play video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Norsgard. Norsgard is a game that takes you into the world of eternal winter, Isbran. Across the lands of Isbrand, a perennial war between the forces of evil rages. Norsgard is a game in which small units of warriors clash in brutal battles. Here no quarter is given, and in order to win, you have to outwit your opponent, take risky gambits, or quite the opposite, patiently wait for their mistake and move in for the kill. Norsgard features a unique game system. This allows the players to make decisions at every step of the match, offering much more than simple dice rolling. At the same time, the rules are straightforward enough to learn over the course of 2 or 3 games. Of course, to fully grasp the workings of your army and win consistently, you'll have to take on many more battles. Included in the main rulebook is a complete campaign system, which allows for leveling up of your fighters, not unlike in the RPGs. From battle to battle, they'll steadily grow in power, they'll learn more skills, and so long as they don't cross paths with a warrior stronger than they are, they stand a good chance of getting up to epic levels. But Norsgard is not merely a game, it is also a rich world, a world full of legends and heroes. There's also some fantastic models and illustrations to immerse you into the universe. So let's now actually take a closer look at the game itself. We'll start with the 3 factions that are featured in the main rulebook. The Temple of the Order of the Ram are perceived as relics of a bygone age, proud orc knights whose days of glory have already come and gone. So all the same, the Order has its share of dark secrets. So the story goes that during a battle amid a mountain pass, a group of Templars, lured by promises of power, entered into a pact with the undead and joined the force intent on subjugating Isbrand. Upon hearing the news, the Order's master wasted no time in sending out a detachment of guard that would swiftly dispatch these traitors. The bitter clash took place at the gates of an old fortress. Faithful Templars slaughtered the undead and renegade brothers alike without a shred of pity. With the death of the head necromancer, the undead resistance faltered, and soon enough their army took flight. All that remained were dazed Templars who had not long ago forsaken their comrades for the enemy, but now, without the necromancer, without sweet promises whispering in their minds, the horridness of the act they had perpetuated finally occurred to them in full. Ultimately, the decision was against putting the brothers corrupted by the vile sorcerer to the sword. The Order had been slowly worn away by never-ending wars, and the ranks of the Templars were ever diminishing. The traitors were given an opportunity to redeem themselves through honourable death in defence of Isbrand. Naturally, for fear of them again falling to necromantic temptations, they were not stationed in mountain posts, but instead charged with keeping forest roads clear of barbarians. They were to be watched over by mages and fellow Templars who had taken part in the shameful battle. And thus was the Scarlet Watch born. Next we have the Howling Horde. The Mork tribe of human barbarians is split up into hordes, and they're just as eager to fight other Isbranian nations as they are one another. Luckily for the civilized folk, the lust for battle exhibited by the barbarians is so vast they are incapable of rallying under the banner of a single leader, at least until one of the hordes conquers the rest. Living on the fringes of the tribe of Mork, the Howling Horde is determined to prove its might in others' eyes night and day. This is aided in the fact that they have demon blood running through their veins, as do all in the Mork tribe. Such a horde should have quickly been obliterated in the merciless world of the tribe. And yet the Howling Horde endures and becomes stronger. Warriors of the Horde strike into their victims' terror far greater than any other living fiend. Tales of miraculous survivors paint a picture of true horror. When fighting against the Horde, it's far better to die than be captured alive. The third faction in the book is the Alliance of the Bat. The Alliance of the Bat is one of the most unusual coalitions in Isbrand, made up of the ancient race of dwarves and the relatively young race of the Wolfkin, brought close by the harshness of mountain living. Barbarians, Templars and undead alike had always considered the Highlands a mere field to wage their wars, and none paid any mind to those who may have actually lived there. The somewhat few in number dwarves and wolfkin were merely a speck on the map for generals planning out their campaigns. But with the establishing of the alliance, the balance of power shifted overnight, much to the surprise of the other nations. The up till then unknown combination of Wolfkin, might and cunning with the tactical know-how of dwarves yielded the alliance a string of victories. The alliance gave both nations a ray of hope, in the case of dwarves, for their legacy to live on, and the Wolfkin, their entire race. Okay, so now let's talk about how the game actually plays. Every unit in the game has a corresponding card. This card has all the information about that particular unit and how they play in the game. This is a Dark Guard for the Crimson Watch. He is a commander, and he is also a mystic, which allows him to cast spells. Each unit has 6 main attributes in the game: movement, attack and strength, defense and armor, bravery, command, and mystic power. If the unit has any special abilities, they will also be listed on the card here. These circles represent the number of hit points this unit possesses. They are split into 3 colours: white, yellow, and red. These represent the damage table the opponent rolls on if this unit is damaged. Units with the commander and or mystic attribute are generally quite unique and therefore have some extra abilities that can be used in the battle. Norsgard also includes rules for psychology. These become even more important during campaign play. The area required to play Norsgard is relatively small, a total of 30 inches long by 24 inches wide. This generally means that games of Norsgard get very brutal very quickly. The game is divided into turns, and each turn is composed of 4 phases. Any attribute or opposed rolls required by a player are made with d10s. The command phase is essentially working out which player has initiative for the turn. Next is the activation phase. Players take turns activating one model at a time. The system is you go, I go, you go, I go. This is good because it allows interaction through the entire turn. The number listed under a unit's move attribute is how far it can move in inches. This is considered a standard move. A unit can then perform other actions like shoot with a ranged weapon, cast a spell, perform a special action which is generally dictated by a scenario that's being played. They can add an extra movement to be a run. They can then charge into close combat with an enemy unit. Even though Norsgard is a skirmish game, they still have rules for line of sight. A unit has a field of vision 180 degrees to the front. This is important if you want to see an opponent to charge, to shoot them, or if you're being shot at. Making a ranged attack is pretty straightforward. Both the attacker and defender roll a single d10 and add their appropriate attribute. If the attacker rolls equal to or higher, they score a hit and roll their damage dice. Let's take a quick look at casting spells. Only a unit possessing the MPW attribute or Mystic Power attribute can cast spells. So here is our Dark Guard Mystic, and he's chosen a spell, Winter Fury. Each turn, a Mystic can cast 2 spells. It can be the same spell twice or 2 different spells. Each spell has a Mystic Stones cost. Mystic Stones are generated using the MPW ability. If a unit has this ability, it will be located here on the card. At the start of the game, a Mystic starts with a number of Mystic Stones equal to their MPW attribute, and at the end of each turn, during the resolution phase, a Mystic will automatically get back 2 Mystic Stones, and may also attempt to gain more, up to double their MPW attribute. Winter Fury has a Mystic Stones cost of 3 and a range of 9 inches. A Mystic must pay these stone costs regardless of whether the opponent turns out to be in range or not. The Mystic Stones cost is also how many dice the player will roll to perform this spell. A Mystic may also spend additional Mystic Stones up to their MPW attribute to enhance the spell, to roll more dice. This will make the spell more effective. The target number for a success is the difficulty level. In the case of Winter Fury, it's the target's armor rating. The number listed under successes is how many dice need to equal or exceed the difficulty level. In the case of Winter Fury, the more successes you have, the more hit point damage you're going to do to your opponent. Here are the rules for charging. During the activation phase, this is the only way that you can get into base contact with an enemy unit. Currently, the rules do state that if you are charged by an enemy unit, you cannot withdraw. So if you haven't activated that model yet, it's stuck there, unless it has a special ability that allows it to move. This opens up to some very interesting tactics. Let's take a closer look at a single round of close combat. We'll bring our Dark Guard up against a Dwarven Lord. Both of these models are commanders for their respective armies, and both of them possess pretty good statistics, so it should be a good matchup. So in this example, the Scarlet Watch player wins the initiative and declares a charge with his Dark Guard against the Dwarf Lord. The player measures the distance, and he is in range, but because he's below his move rating, he doesn't get any bonus dice to his attack rolls. Okay, next we're going to resolve the combat. The next thing we're going to do, both players form two pools of dice, preferably of different colours. One is for attack, and the other one is for strength. Both the Dark Guard and the Dwarf Lord have the same statistics, so this is going to make it nice and easy. The game does actually feature combat styles, where a player can choose to add extra attack dice or strength dice or increase their defense, but in this case we're just going to use the standard attack, which doesn't modify any of the dice pool. Both players now roll their attack dice pool. Both players need to roll equal to or above the defense rating on the enemy unit's card. This is the number on the left in the highlighted section. Now, as you can see, the Dark Guard player rolled a 0 on one of their dice. This is a success, and each 0 that you roll allows you to roll another dice. The Dark Guard player rolls a 5th dice, but unfortunately it's not high enough to make a success. So in the end, the Dark Guard player scores 4 successes, while the Dwarf Lord player scores 2. The unit that rolls the most attack successes gets to roll its damage first. In this case, the Dark Guard scored a 4 over the 2, so he will roll his dice now. Any dice that were successes on your attack pool are applied to your strength pool. All of those dice are rolled together. This means that the Dark Guard unit will be rolling 8 dice to apply damage. Normally, under the rules, the Dwarf Lord unit would have to wait until all damage effects have been applied to them before they would get to roll their dice. But for this example, I'm just getting everyone to roll their dice so we can see what happens. The Dwarf player had 2 successes on their attack dice pool, so these are added to their 4 strength, totaling 6 dice. He rolls his dice and gets 4 successes on the strength check. So we now have 7 successes for the Dark Guard and 4 successes for the Dwarf Lord. Each success on the strength dice pool is 1 hit point of damage applied to the enemy. Now that the hit points have been crossed off, we now work out to see what damage has actually happened to each unit. Norsgard has 3 damage effects tables: white, yellow and red. These correspond to the colours on the hit points on the card. If the last point of damage that was marked off is white, you roll on the white table. If the last point of damage that was marked off is yellow, you roll on the yellow. And yes, you guessed it, if the last point of damage you marked off was red, it's on the red table. The white table has only minor effects. The red table are quite severe, and it's the red table that decides if a model is removed from the battlefield. Because the Dark Guard player was able to apply damage first, he will be the one that rolls on his damage table against the Dwarf Lord first. The player rolls a single 10-sided die, and in this case the result is a 3. On each damage effect table there are 2 sections under each result: instant and delayed. Instant applies as soon as you roll the dice on the damage effect table. Delayed happens at the end of the combat result, after all dice from both units have been resolved. In the case of this damage roll, the instant is the model loses 1 hit point. So the dwarf player marks off an additional hit point immediately on his card. At the end of this combat, the Dark Guard unit has the option to push this Dwarf Lord model away up to 2 inches. This is handy because if he wants to cast a spell, he generally can't do it in close combat. However, the Dwarf Lord has an ability called Tough as Nails, which reads, all rolls on white and yellow damage tables suffered by this model are made with a -2 modifier. So, the damage result is now 1. The instant, the blow produces no further effects, so the Dwarf Lord does not take the extra hit point of damage, but the delayed effect is still the same, so the Dark Guard still has the option to push the Dwarf model away if he wants to. Now the Dwarf Lord unit has a chance to roll for a damage effect. The last hit point colour crossed off was white, so he will roll on the white table. The result is a 9, which is instant, the model loses 1 hit point, and a delayed of after resolving the combat, the enemy may push this model 2 inches away in a straight line. The model may not initiate of own volition another combat this turn. As the Dark Guard unit does not possess an ability to modify the damage effect, he crosses off 1 additional hit point, but this does not cause another roll on the damage table. The delayed effects are now applied in initiative order. The Dark Guard unit decides to push the Dwarf Lord away 2 inches because he wants to cast a spell next turn. The Dwarf Lord unit also had the option to push the Dark Guard 2 inches away, but decides against it. It is possible for a unit to get other debilitating effects on the battlefield through combat. Here are just some examples here. Everything that I've touched on is just the basics, but it does give you a pretty solid idea of how the game's going to play. All the information you see here is taken from the rules. It's a free PDF download from Norsgard.com, or you can actually buy a hardcover full colour print. It's a beautiful rulebook filled with short stories and beautiful artwork. It is very easy to read, and considering it has campaign rules as standard in it, this makes it very enticing to a lot of people, including myself. The creators of Norsgard already have plans in the works for expanding the number of armies that they have available, and this will continue into the future. I believe this game is quite entertaining, and anyone who likes small-scale skirmish games would really like it. Go check it out. Thanks for watching this Alpha Strike We Play video. Head to our YouTube channel where we have more reviews and battle reports for this and all other great games. See you later.